Section number 4 of Shadowland, September 1919. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Shadowland, September 1919, by Various. An investment in cotton. Way back in the 60s, far south of the Mason-Dixie line, there lived a family. Cottons they were, who had to themselves a charming home, a huge plantation, a troop of slaves, and everything. Then came the war, and the young lad, who had known only the environment of luxuriousness, was bereft of all his treasures except his bride. The dainty Mrs. Cotton wanted most seriously to do something to help, but her husband, who had no experience whatsoever in aiding the upkeep of an income, was horrified to have her presume a woman's slightest thought should be devoted to it. So there was nothing left for the little wife to do but settle down in their pretty home. It was very pretty, if more compact, and make it the brightest spot on earth. Years passed, and Houston, I love the way Lucy says it, Houston, in that mellow intonation of hers, grew to look upon the daughters of Mr. and Mrs. Cotton as the three Graces. Amy, always gay and free from doubt or fear, to them was Faith. The youngest girl was Ruth. She was Lady Graciousness. They called her Charity, but when it was the symbol of joy, of outlook, of hope, they turned to the middle-sized Grace, our Lucy. I turned to her now. She was busily absorbed in untying a box which had just come from the modistes, and looked with her parted lips and scintillant eyes, for all the universe, hopeful. "Oh, whatever we are and shall become, there is no argument about it," Lucy sung. "We owe it to Mother. She has been wonderful. Just the right guide and all that a parent should be. That goes far towards making a girl. Mother was not demonstrative, but she was a woman of deeds. Why, the neighbors in Houston, remember Euston, slow and ever so soft, thought she was crazy to send her children to the opera every week, and always into $5 seats. They could not understand why Mother would much rather stay at home from one of their teas in order to be present while our instructors were at the house coaching us in dancing, dramatic work, and music, so that she could help later when we practiced. You see," with a Lucy Cotton smile, "if I love only the beautiful now, it is because Mother earnestly and very conscientiously reared me in that manner. She never chose for us our literature. She knew that we had been shown what was fine and what was not, would be distasteful. She never commanded us about our recreations, or demanded certain kinds of friends. Her standards she had willed when we were babies to become innate in us. Therefore she knew that we knew, and felt as free." By this time the contents of the box were being held up for supervision. It was white satin, and the lace that trimmed it was exquisite. Lucy was speaking. I recalled my whereabouts and heard, "I am going to be a bride to-day. Only in the picture, of course. Sun-up is its name. And oh, I beg your pardon." She opened the door and came back with a package. Quickly the wrappings were torn off, and a bouquet, colossal, of roses and sweet-smelling ferns was revealed. One long breath, and Lucy, a picture in her fleshness, exclaimed, "Isn't it heavenly to be able to work for people like this? Mr. Bacon is so kind and thorough. We really did not have to use these lovely things, but he would never hear of artificial flowers. Everybody around here is splendid to me. Mr. Earl, the cameraman, has helped tremendously in his advice about make-up, and the director, Mr. Bailey, when I did do anything, well, never hesitated to comment. And when you know that a staff like that is depending upon you to do good work, why, you cannot help but do better. It is a mistake for supervisors not to encourage their subordinates. Evidently all the people under those auspices, the work of Miss Cotton was performed, never made that mistake. She, from the first, had been told to go on, go ahead, go far. She had it in her, was the slogan. Step by step her course has grown. Slowly, surely, ever so surely. And it all started on the right track. I like to believe because she came from Euston, or because she had been inspired to live up to being Hope, or because Mrs. Cotton wanted most seriously to do something to help. 7 years ago, Lucy and Ruth were brought to New York by their mother. They had had the good fortune to meet Schuyler Ladd, who wanted Miss Daniels, the director of Teachers' College, to have his good fortune and meet them. Miss Daniels was charmed and charming, and knew that her friend Alan Bement, the head of the art classes in the university, would be also. Indeed, Mr. Bement asked the girls to please be kind enough to pose for a portrait that one of his classes was doing. And somehow, some way, it slipped out through the pupils to the ears of Charles Frederick Nagel, the painter, that here had been discovered unusual models. He called on them at the Hargrave Hotel, and it was arranged that they pose for him as Martha and Mary in the phase when Jesus is approaching. It is in the British Museum now, known as the Home in Bethany. Following that, consequently, came to the acquaintanceship with Howard Chandler Christie and Charles Dana Gibson. They sat for them, and also for a head done by Emily Fouche, called A Study in Blue-Gray, which today has its place in a Fifth Avenue gallery. One Sunday morning Lucy awoke to find that Harrison Fisher had declared to a dozen newspapers, illustrating with a photograph, that in Miss Cotton could be decried the ideal Southern beauty type. Erdney Holmes Edwards, the composer, happened to mention, while her maid was within earshot, "I'd like to meet that young girl." And Hattie right about faced and said, "You can. She lives on the floor below. I attend to her suite. Do you want to be introduced?" "It is from Mrs. Edwards," Lucy said as she was being helped into her gown, "that everything I have now had its source. It's funny, isn't it? People warned me that without influence with men I should never get along. And yet all the potent things that ever happened to me came because of such sweethearts as Ariadne. She knew my longing for the stage, the way I had been trained for it, and that the best possible way to begin would be in the chorus. She took me to Ina Clare, who was then at the Park Theatre, making the Quaker Girl a hit. They were only going to play 6 weeks more, but Miss Clare had me placed in the company, and told me to watch her closely, so that if the chance ever presented itself I could go on as her understudy. I loved what I had to do. I forgot I was in the chorus. I absorbed every mannerism of Miss Clare, and subconsciously memorized her lines. In the wings, Clifton Crawford often was kind enough to show me the dance. Well, the very last week of the performance, Miss Clare was taken ill, and I was called upon. I went through the whole thing in a daze. I couldn't believe that it had happened, that I was there, the Quaker Girl, singing and dancing on Broadway. One more channel opened, like that when we were in Boston, and it was after that performance that Otto Harbach said to me, "Some day I should like to write a part for you in one of my plays." And jokes of jokes, here I have been running all season and up in Mabel's room, his play. Another coincidence was when Mr. Brady engaged me to be Meg in Little Women, and I went back to Houston and performed in the very theatre that I had seen Mr. Brady's wife, Grace George, in a few years ago, and had been so thrilled that it was then my desire, I knew, was to act. Miss Cotton unearthed from out the tissue paper 2 miniature satin pumps. She fingered them lightly as she adjusted orange blossoms in their lace rosettes. Then she continued. Polygamy followed the next season. It was a fortunate experience to be in the same cast as Catherine Emmett, Willard Mack, Ramsay Wallace, Crystal Hearn, Mary Shaw, and Howard Kyle. But that ended too, and I was then placed in Suki, the part I did not care for. Something told me to change, and we should obey our instincts. Instinct is the first prompting we hear. It is the little voice. Argument is the thing that comes on top of that and tries to make us fluctuate. Well, I did not wait for argument. I went direct to Augustus Thomas and explained. He laughed at me for a while. He even asked me if I thought I was a great tragedian. But when I told him I thought he was only joking to ask that of me, he sent me to John Golden, who introduced me to his partner, Winchell Smith, who said he had the part for me, and which for 2 years kept me playing in Turn to the Right. Lucy's charm instantly opens up all the hearts of those with whom she comes in contact. And yet, ultimately, when her triumph does blaze forth, it will be because of being capable. If she develops into our leading American actress, we should also remember that had it been destined otherwise, she could have used her voice in operetta, or twirled herself into the place of premier danseuse. End of section 4.